More than 1 million Americans relocate every single year, and a surprising number regret where they land within the first 24 months. You know those picturesque towns in America you see in magazines or Instagram feeds? Quaint houses, tree-lined streets, vintage lampposts, boutique coffee shops, maybe even a riverfront that looks like it came straight from a travel spread? Now imagine walking those streets and realizing it's eerily quiet. Stores are open, but empty. Homes are charming, but available. That peaceful vibe? It starts to feel unsettling. Appearances can be deceiving. Today we're diving into charming but empty cities and the hidden dangers of moving to these 10 U.S. cities nobody tells you about. These aren't places people regret because they're ugly or outrageously expensive, but because they're quiet in all the wrong ways. Welcome to Across the United States, where we pull back the curtain on hidden cities and hidden towns in the U.S. that look affordable, calm, and full of promise. Until the U.S. job market dries up, crime rates quietly rise, and the population keeps shrinking. These aren't postcard ghost towns with tumbleweeds. These are real, functioning places people are actively moving to, and then leaving just as fast. If you're a working professional, a young family, a remote worker, or someone researching where to live in America, or even places to move out of the U.S., this video is for you. We're talking empty cities in America, cities everyone is leaving, and dangerous places to move to that don't advertise their problems on Zillow. Think low cost of living in the U.S.A. paired with high trade-offs. Think opportunity gaps disguised as quiet charm. Think ghost cities in the U.S. where the street lights still work, but the neighbors keep disappearing. Stick around. The most surprising entries aren't the ones you expect. Like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Across the United States. Your future self might thank you. Number 10. Cairo, Illinois. Cairo, Illinois sits right at a spot that should have made it legendary, where the Mississippi and Ohio rivers meet at the southern tip of the state. On paper, that's prime real estate. Historically, it was. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, Cairo was a busy river port, a transportation hub, and a place where commerce actually happened. Boats came through, businesses flourished, and the town had a reason to exist beyond a dot on the map. Fast forward to today, and Cairo feels like a town that missed several important meetings about the future. At first glance, it still has charm. You'll see beautiful old brick buildings, wide streets clearly designed for more traffic than they get now, and historic homes that hint at better decades. It looks like the kind of place where time slows down, which sounds great until you realize time didn't slow. It packed up and left. Cairo's population has dropped from around 15,000 in the 1960s to fewer than 2,000 residents today. That's not small-town quiet. That's you can hear your own footsteps downtown quiet. Entire blocks sit empty. Homes are abandoned, not because no one wants a house, but because there's little reason to stay. The economic story explains a lot. As river trade declined and rail and highway routes bypassed the city, jobs dried up, businesses closed, younger residents moved away for work, education, or simply more options. What's left is a town struggling to maintain basic services with a shrinking tax base. Schools, healthcare access, retail, and infrastructure all feel the pressure. And yes, the people who remain are often friendly and resilient, but there's an undeniable sense of isolation. Cairo isn't close to major job markets, and commuting isn't realistic unless you really enjoy long drives and limited alternatives. For newcomers, that isolation can feel heavier than expected, especially if you move there hoping for opportunity, not just affordability. Cairo is one of those hidden cities in the U.S. that looks appealing if you're chasing low housing costs and historic charm. But once you arrive, reality sets in. Cheap homes don't create jobs. Beautiful rivers don't guarantee economic revival. And charm alone doesn't pay the bills. It's not a bad place because it's ugly or unsafe. It's difficult because it's been left behind. Cairo stands as a quiet reminder that where you live in America matters just as much as why people are still there. Or why they aren't. Number 9. Deadwood, South Dakota. Deadwood is one of those towns that makes you want to take a deep breath and a slow stroll, if only to appreciate the architecture, the history, and the feeling that every corner has a story to tell. Nestled in the Black Hills, It's the kind of place where the streets themselves feel like props from a Western movie. And, honestly, they almost are. The city rose to fame in the late 19th century during the Black Hills Gold Rush, attracting prospectors, gamblers, and colorful characters like Wild Bill Hickok and Calamity Jane. The stories are legendary, the saloons are preserved, and the historic district is so intact it almost feels staged, but in a way that's undeniably captivating. Founded officially in 1876, Deadwood boomed quickly. Wealth poured in, buildings went up, and the town carved a reputation for lawlessness and opportunity. Then, as the gold supply dwindled, so did the population. By the mid-20th century, Deadwood had slowed dramatically. Today, the census records just under 1,400 residents. That's fewer people than some apartment complexes in bigger cities, yet the town's historic heart still hums with life, albeit mostly seasonal. Geographically, Deadwood is stunning. The surrounding Black Hills offer rolling pine-covered hills, hiking trails, and dramatic vistas that feel like nature on steroids. But with that beauty comes isolation. The nearest large city is Rapid City, about 45 minutes away, and while that's not far by car, it's enough to make every grocery run or commute a mini-adventure. Winters are cold and snowy, summers are crowded with tourists, and in between, the town settles into a quiet, almost contemplative lull. Economically, Deadwood is a story of one main industry: tourism. Casinos, ghost tours, historic museums, and themed festivals drive most jobs. Outside those sectors, employment is limited, and long-term career opportunities are scarce. Local shops operate on limited hours, many restaurants close in the off-season, and young people often leave in search of stability. It's a place that looks alive, especially on Instagram, but for full-time residents, the reality is slower, quieter, and occasionally frustrating. Culturally, the town leans heavily into its past. Preservation rules keep the historic facades intact, but that sometimes means modern conveniences and infrastructure improvements take a back seat. Living in Deadwood is a mix of postcard-perfect charm and everyday compromise. Stunning surroundings and rich history come at the price of jobs, services, and population density. Deadwood isn't forgotten, it's remembered. Visitors come, tourists snap photos, and legends linger. But for those who actually call it home, it's a lesson in trade-offs. Beauty and history are abundant. Opportunity and community are a little more elusive. Number 8. Centralia, Pennsylvania. If you're drawn to places that feel less like towns and more like whispered legends, Centralia fits the bill a little too well. On paper, it still exists. On maps, it still has a name. In reality, Centralia has been slowly disappearing for over 60 years, undone by a fire that refuses to go out. The underground coal mine fire, ignited in 1962 during a routine landfill burn, slipped into old mining tunnels and settled in for the long haul. Experts estimate it could keep burning for another 250 years. Patience, apparently, is a geological virtue. Centralia began in the mid-19th century as a coal mining hub, one of many small Pennsylvania towns built entirely around anthracite. It had churches, schools, parades, and the kind of tight-knit community that forms when everyone depends on the same industry. That industry also left behind a maze of abandoned mine shafts beneath the town, an invisible problem until the ground itself started exhaling toxic gases. Carbon monoxide seeped into homes, vegetation died without explanation, and in 1981, a sinkhole nearly swallowed a 12-year-old boy. That moment shifted Centralia from manageable problem to absolutely not. The federal government stepped in during the 1980s and 1990s, offering buyouts to residents. Most accepted. Homes were demolished, streets were removed from maintenance lists, and entire neighborhoods vanished, leaving only curbs leading to empty fields. In 2002, the town lost its zip code. In 2017, Pennsylvania officially condemned nearly all remaining properties. As of the 2020 census, the population was fewer than 5 people, residents who stayed not because it made sense, but because leaving felt worse. Geographically, Centralia sits in a quiet stretch of eastern Pennsylvania, surrounded by wooded hills that look deceptively peaceful. Birds still sing, trees still sway, steam still rises from cracks in the ground on cold mornings, which adds a certain atmosphere, especially if you enjoy nature with a side of low-level danger. Politically, it remains an incorporated borough, which is impressive for a town without a grocery store, gas station, or functional streets. Culturally, Centralia has become a symbol rather than a place. It's studied in environmental policy classes, referenced in horror fiction, and visited by curious travelers who come, take photos, and leave before sunset. Living there, however, means accepting that the ground beneath you is unstable, the future is sealed, and the silence isn't peaceful, it's permanent. Centralia looks fascinating from a distance. Up close, it's a reminder that some towns don't fade away. They smolder. Number 7. Rockford, Illinois. Rockford introduces itself politely. There's the Rock River winding through town, tree-lined neighborhoods with names that sound reassuring, and just enough historic architecture to suggest stability. For a moment, it feels like the kind of Midwestern city where things may have slowed down, but never truly stopped. Then you stay a while and notice how much of Rockford is built around what used to be there. For most of the 20th century, Rockford thrived as an industrial powerhouse. Known as the screw capital of the world, it specialized in fasteners, machine tools, and manufacturing jobs that supported a solid middle class. Factories hummed, union wages paid mortgages, and the city grew confident in its economic identity. That confidence took a hit in the late 1970s and 1980s when manufacturing began leaving town. Plants closed, jobs vanished, and entire sections of the city were left with brick shells instead of employers. Geographically, Rockford sits in northern Illinois, about 90 miles northwest of Chicago, close enough to feel connected, far enough to miss out on most of the spillover benefits. The Rock River still provides scenic walking paths and waterfront parks, but it also cuts through neighborhoods where vacancy rates quietly climbed. Some historic districts have been lovingly preserved, others are preserved mostly by being left alone. Culturally, Rockford tries to balance pride and reinvention. There's a respected art museum, a surprisingly strong park system, and a deep loyalty among longtime residents who remember when the city worked exactly as promised. At the same time, many younger residents leave, drawn toward Chicago or Madison for more reliable opportunities. The result is a city where ambition exists, but momentum feels inconsistent. Rockford's story is complicated. Revitalization projects come and go, housing prices swing unpredictably, and employment gains often lag behind national trends. Crime rates, particularly violent crime, have remained a persistent concern into the 2020s, shaping public perception and daily life. Some neighborhoods rebound, others stall. The uncertainty becomes part of the lifestyle, not just the headlines. Politically, local leadership has pushed redevelopment and downtown investment, with mixed results. New restaurants open beside boarded-up buildings, creating a contrast that feels hopeful and unfinished at the same time. It's a city still negotiating with its past, unsure how much to honor and how much to leave behind. Rockford isn't empty in the way ghost towns are. It's emptier in a quieter sense, missing the economic rhythm that once made everything click. Nostalgia makes it charming. Reality makes it complicated. And as Rockford reminds you, remembering the good years doesn't automatically bring them back. Number 6. Port Townsend, Washington. Port Townsend knows exactly how to make a first impression. Perched at the northeastern tip of the Olympic Peninsula, the town looks like it was designed to be photographed. Gingerbread-trimmed Victorian homes, a walkable waterfront, and sailboats bobbing politely in the marina. It's the kind of place that convinces visitors they've discovered a secret. Locals, meanwhile, know it's more of a beautifully preserved pause button. Founded in the 1850s, Port Townsend was once convinced it would become a major West Coast port. Investors built grand Victorian buildings in anticipation of booming trade that never fully arrived. When shipping routes favored Seattle and Tacoma instead, Port Townsend was left with impressive architecture and a permanently stalled growth spurt. Ironically, that failure is now its biggest asset. Much of the downtown is a National Historic Landmark district, preserved not because it thrived, but because it didn't change. Geographically, the city is stunning and slightly isolating. Water surrounds it on 3 sides, and while the views are excellent, the logistics are less romantic. Getting anywhere involves ferries or long drives, both of which operate on schedules that encourage patience and flexible expectations. The weather reinforces that mindset. Port Townsend sits in the Olympic rain shadow, meaning it gets less rain than Seattle, but what it does get tends to arrive as extended stretches of gray drizzle, rather than dramatic storms. sunshine becomes an event worth discussing. Culturally, Port Townsend leans hard into the arts. Film festivals, wooden boat celebrations, and music events keep the calendar full, seasonally. Tourism fuels the economy, along with a sizable retiree population that appreciates the pace and the scenery. What's missing are diverse job opportunities. Outside of healthcare, hospitality, and small creative businesses, steady, well-paying work can be elusive. Many residents commute, work remotely, or piece together multiple income streams just to stay put. Politically and socially, the town values preservation over expansion. That keeps development limited, housing expensive, and rental options scarce. Young families often arrive inspired and leave quietly a few years later, priced out or professionally stalled. Restaurants close early, shops keep irregular hours, and winter can feel like the town collectively decided to nap. Port Townsend isn't forgotten. It's intentionally frozen in amber. It offers charm in abundance, but momentum in short supply. Living there means embracing beauty, quiet, and a calendar that revolves around tourist season. It's lovely to visit, peaceful to retire in, and surprisingly challenging if you're hoping for more than postcards and patience. We are halfway through the countdown. If you're enjoying the video so far, hit the like button, subscribe to Across the United States, and ring the notification bell for more informative contents about the United States. Let's get back into it. Number 5. Gary, Indiana. Gary doesn't hide its story. It wears it openly, in rusted steel beams, empty schools, and grand buildings that hint at a louder, busier past. Founded in 1906 by U.S. Steel, Gary was a purpose-built city designed to serve one industry and serve it well. For decades, it did exactly that. Steel mills provided stable, high-paying jobs. The population surged past 175,000 by the 1960s, and Gary became a symbol of American industrial muscle. Then the mills slowed, automation rose, and globalization rewrote the rules. What followed was a long, uneven decline. As steel jobs disappeared in the 1970s and 1980s, residents left in waves. Today, Gary's population is under 70,000, and entire neighborhoods sit partially or completely abandoned. Schools, once packed, closed one after another. Infrastructure built for a much larger city became expensive to maintain, and many areas simply couldn't keep up. The result is a patchwork city, some blocks active, others eerily quiet. Culturally, Gary's legacy is far richer than its reputation suggests. It's the birthplace of Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5, a fact locals carry with pride. The city also played a key role in Black political history, electing one of the nation's first Black mayors in 1967. That history still matters here, even if it's often overshadowed by headlines focusing on crime and decay. Geographically, Gary sits right on Lake Michigan, offering lakefront views that many healthier cities would envy. Proximity to Chicago, just 30 miles away, seems like it should be an advantage. In practice, that closeness has often meant competition rather than collaboration, with investment flowing past Gary instead of into it. Revitalization efforts have come and gone. Casinos and industrial redevelopment projects provided brief optimism, but long-term job growth has remained limited. Crime rates, particularly violent crime, continue to shape daily life and public perception well into the 2020s. While some neighborhoods are stable and deeply rooted, others struggle with disinvestment that feels generational. Politically, the city has wrestled with fiscal challenges, governance issues, and the difficult task of shrinking responsibly, deciding what to maintain, what to demolish, and what to let go. It's not neglect, it's triage. Gary isn't empty because it lacks history or culture. It's empty because an economy built around a single promise lost its foundation. The music, the memories, and the pride remain, but as Gary proves, legacy alone doesn't cover rent, and nostalgia can't replace opportunity. Number 4. North Adams, Massachusetts. North Adams looks like it was designed to lure you in slowly. Nestled in the northwestern corner of Massachusetts, surrounded by the Berkshire Mountains, it offers brick mill buildings, tree-lined streets, and a skyline of rolling hills that feel deliberately calming. As a short escape, it's excellent. As a long-term plan, it asks a few uncomfortable questions, mostly about employment, weather, and how much quiet is too much. North Adams was anything but sleepy. During the 19th and early 20th centuries, it thrived as a manufacturing center, producing textiles, electronics, and precision instruments. The massive mill complex that now houses the Massachusetts Museum of Contemporary Art, MassMoCA, once powered much of the local economy. When manufacturing declined in the mid to late 20th century, the jobs left, but the buildings remained, waiting patiently for reinvention. The city deserves credit for trying. MassMoCA opened in 1999 and transformed North Adams into a recognized arts destination, attracting visitors, performers, and weekend crowds. Small galleries, cafes, and seasonal festivals give downtown a pulse, at least on weekends. During the week, especially outside tourist season, the pace slows dramatically. Many storefronts operate on limited hours, and after dark, the town settles into a near whisper. The Berkshires are stunning but demanding. Winters are long, cold, and snowy, and heating costs regularly surprise newcomers who underestimated quaint New England winters. The scenery doesn't change, but daily life does. Snow removal, icy roads, and limited sunlight become routine rather than charming. Political and economic support tends to concentrate in larger Massachusetts cities, leaving towns like North Adams to stretch limited resources creatively. The job market remains narrow. Arts, education, healthcare, and tourism dominate, but high-paying, diverse career options are scarce. Many residents commute to nearby towns or piece together multiple roles. Younger people often arrive inspired by the culture and leave a few years later in search of stability. The population has gradually declined for decades, reinforcing the sense that the town is quietly contracting rather than growing. Housing appears affordable compared to Boston or Cambridge, but maintenance costs, especially on older historic homes, add up quickly. Renovation is common. Quick returns are not. North Adams isn't neglected so much as carefully preserved, sometimes at the expense of modernization. North Adams isn't forgotten because it lacks beauty or creativity. It's forgotten because sustainability requires more than scenery and galleries. Living here means accepting trade-offs. Breathtaking views in exchange for limited opportunity. Peaceful nights in exchange for economic uncertainty. It's a town that excels at weekends and hesitates at permanence. Number 3. Ely, Nevada. Ely doesn't announce itself. It sits quietly in eastern Nevada, surrounded by vast stretches of desert and mountain ranges, content to be passed through rather than discovered. On a map, it looks important enough to note. In person, it feels like a place that once mattered greatly and is still deciding what comes next. Founded in the late 19th century, Ely grew because of copper mining. By the early 1900s, it was a booming company town, complete with railroads, workers' housing, and an economy tied almost entirely to what could be pulled from the ground. The Ruth copper mine nearby became one of the largest open-pit mines in the world, and Ely thrived as long as extraction made financial sense. When mining slowed, paused, or shut down, as it has repeatedly over the decades, Ely slowed with it. There's no soft landing when your economic engine has only one gear. Geographically, Ely is stunning in a stark, unforgiving way. Sitting at over 6,400 feet in elevation, it's one of Nevada's colder cities, with long winters and dramatic temperature swings. The surrounding Great Basin landscape offers wide-open skies, minimal light pollution, and a level of quiet that feels intentional. It's beautiful, but it's also isolating. The nearest major city is hours away, and running errands can quickly turn into an all-day commitment. Culturally, Ely leans into its past. The Nevada Northern Railway Museum, historic downtown buildings, and mining relics are carefully preserved, giving the town a frozen-in-time quality. There's pride here, quiet, stubborn pride, but not much urgency. Downtown storefronts are sparse, operating on limited hours, and shopping options are minimal. If you need something specific, the answer is often a long drive or an online order and a wait. Economically, mining still dominates, supplemented by government jobs, healthcare, and a trickle of tourism. When mining activity dips, the ripple effects are immediate. Population numbers fluctuate, younger residents leave for broader opportunities, and services shrink accordingly. It's not neglect, it's arithmetic. A small tax base can only stretch so far. Politically and socially, Ely values self-reliance. That independence appeals to some and quietly overwhelms others. There's little nightlife, few dining options, and limited entertainment beyond outdoor recreation. For those seeking solitude, it can feel like freedom. For others, it feels like being gently erased. Ely isn't forgotten because it lacks character. It's forgotten because modern life rarely rewards remoteness. Living here means trading convenience for calm, variety for space, and connection for quiet. You may find peace in Ely, or you may just find yourself counting tumbleweeds and wondering when the next truck is coming through town. Number 2, St. Augustine, Florida. St. Augustine has had a long time to perfect its image. Founded in 1565, it proudly holds the title of the oldest continuously occupied European established city in the continental United States, and it leans into that fact enthusiastically. Cobblestone streets, Spanish colonial architecture, coquina stone walls, and enough historical markers to make every walk feel like a guided tour. For visitors, it's charming. For residents, it can feel like living inside a very well-marketed theme. Geographically, St. Augustine sits along Florida's northeastern coast, where the Atlantic breeze softens the heat but doesn't solve the humidity. The weather invites people year-round, which is exactly the problem. Tourism never really slows down. Spring break blends into summer vacation, which blends into fall festivals, which slide neatly into winter holiday crowds. The city rarely exhales. Culturally, history dominates everything. That's a blessing and a limitation. Museums, reenactments, ghost tours, and historic preservation projects define daily life. While the city does host a small creative community and local events, much of the cultural calendar is designed for people who will leave in a few days. Locals learn to navigate side streets and shop at odd hours to avoid the crowds that flood the historic district by mid-morning. Economically, St. Augustine revolves around hospitality. Hotels, restaurants, retail, and tour companies provide most jobs, but those positions are often seasonal and lower paying. Professional opportunities outside tourism are limited, pushing many residents to commute to nearby Jacksonville or work multiple jobs. Housing costs, however, don't reflect that reality. Rent and home prices have climbed steadily into the 2020s, fueled by short-term rentals and second home buyers who aren't concerned with local wages. Politically, the city faces constant tension between preservation and livability. Strict building regulations protect historic charm but restrict development, limiting housing supply and modern infrastructure updates. Traffic congestion, often politely referred to as rush hour, can bring daily routines to a standstill. Even though the city itself is relatively small, add in rising insurance costs, especially flood insurance, and the financial math becomes less charming. Socially, living in St. Augustine can feel oddly lonely. Neighbors change frequently, friendships rotate with the tourist season, and many storefronts cater more to visitors than residents. The city is alive, but not always present. St. Augustine isn't forgotten, it's overbooked. It's a place where history is everywhere, opportunity is selective, and daily life requires patience. Living there can feel like working the night shift at a museum that never closes. Number 1. Detroit, Michigan. Detroit wears its history like a pair of grease-stained work gloves, proud, rugged, and a little frayed around the edges. Founded in 1701 by the French explorer Antoine de la Mothe Cadillac, it grew from a trading post into America's powerhouse of innovation and industry. By the early 20th century, Detroit was synonymous with automobiles. The Big Three, Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler, defined the city's economy, culture, and identity. Prosperity poured in, skyscrapers rose, jazz filled the streets, and neighborhoods thrived. But when the factory faltered, the fallout was both swift and brutal. By the 1970s and 1980s, deindustrialization, white flight, and economic downturns began to hollow out the city. Population, which peaked around 1.85 million in 1950, dropped to just under 640,000 by the 2020 census. Thousands of homes were abandoned, commercial districts shuttered, and entire neighborhoods left in slow-motion decay. Today, you can drive through blocks where historic homes stand beside empty lots and crumbling storefronts, a reminder that Detroit's decline was not a single event, it was a decades-long unraveling. Culturally, Detroit refuses to be ignored. Motown Records put it on the global music map, producing legends like Stevie Wonder, Diana Ross, and Marvin Gaye. Techno and hip-hop scenes flourished. World-class institutions like the Detroit Institute of Arts, the Motown Museum, and the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History anchor the city's identity. Detroiters are fiercely proud, and the creative spirit thrives even in neighborhoods struggling with disinvestment. Geographically, Detroit sits on the Detroit River, across from Windsor, Ontario. The waterfront is stunning and underutilized, with parks and promenades that could rival more touristy cities if investment were consistent. Politically and socially, the city has wrestled with corruption, fiscal crises, including the 2013 bankruptcy, and uneven redevelopment efforts. Some districts like Midtown and Downtown show remarkable revitalization: new apartments, breweries, tech startups, and restaurants. Yet just a few miles away, the city feels frozen in time. Economically, opportunity is real but uneven. Tech, healthcare, automotive innovation, and small businesses are growing, but systemic challenges remain: crime rates, school funding disparities, and infrastructure decay. Living in Detroit is a balancing act between hope and hazard, revival and ruin, energy and emptiness. Detroit's charm is undeniable, its history unforgettable, but it's a city that demands awareness, resilience, and patience. For every glimmer of revival, there's a reminder of what has been lost. Moving here isn't impossible. It's just a high-wire act with breathtaking views and occasional holes in the safety net. So, there you have it. 10 cities that look charming at first glance, but hide pitfalls that could turn your dream move into a cautionary tale. Did any of these surprise you? Or maybe one feels like it could be your secret getaway? Either way, we want to know. Drop a comment below telling us which city you'd dare or absolutely wouldn't move to. If you enjoyed this deep dive into America's hidden corners, give it a like. And make sure to subscribe to Across the United States for more videos giving honest, no-nonsense views of places to relocate or steer clear of.